Hey folks, hope you're all doing well. It's Mark back with another vinyl update. Hope your summer's been good. Hope you've been able to take some time off, go some places, do some fun things, and not work all the time. I know what that's like, and it's good to be able to take some time off and regroup a little bit. So I did that 2 weekends ago. I mean, I only took a couple of days off, but I went down to Arkansas to see my parents. That's where they've retired, Rogers, Arkansas. And I went to a surprisingly cool record store over in Fayetteville called Block Street Records, I think is what it was called. And found some cool stuff there. So I'm going to show the stuff I got there in this video, as well as other things I've picked up here around the Cleveland area. And also a few things I've gotten online as well. So again, hope you're all doing well. And I'm going to go ahead and get into some vinyl here. Let's start with that store I went to. I'm reaching over here because I'm just picking the stuff that I got at this store. Place called Block Records in Fayetteville. Cool little record store. Very, not a big record store, but definitely the quality is quality over quantity. Lots of psych, blues, jazz, post-punk, just general classic rock. So they had all a really good selection of stuff there. The prices were decent. Some of the stuff was competitively priced. You could tell they were pricing some things on from Discogs and knew what it was worth. So you weren't going to find any super good deals there, but you were going to find some decent prices. I mean, they weren't things weren't totally overpriced or anything. So I found a few things there that I'd been looking for a while, and a few things I didn't even know existed. Start with this band, the Orange Revival. They are, I believe, a Swedish group, and this is their first album, Black Smoke Rising, and very much in the psychedelic vein, alongside things like Spacemen 3, the more mellow side of Spacemen 3. Certainly could compare them to Black Angels and so a lot of the newer psychedelia that's out there right now. I actually saw them at Austin Psych Fest about 4 years ago. No, a little longer than that now. Maybe back in 2012. Yeah, 5 years ago. I saw them and really liked them and kind of forgot about them. So the Orange Revival. Loved them so much, I went online and picked up another album by them. This one called Futurescent from 2015 on the Fuzz Club label. Futurescent from the Orange Revival. Really, haven't listened to this yet. I just got it this past week. But did listen to this one, and it's terrific. Really, really liked it. So, Orange Revival. Check them out if you're into psychedelia, modern psychedelia. This band, 1,000 Mexicans, indie band from the UK, mid-1980s. A little bit synthesized based, synthesizers and guitar mix. I don't know, I like them. They're not a band you come across very much. Don't see their records too often out there, so I found this one at Block Street Records in Fayetteville. It's called Criminal. It's a 12-inch from 1985. This one from Vicious Pink. I have everything by Vicious Pink except this. This is the third 12-inch release of Cuckoo Can't You See. This was a big club hit for them in 1984 and continued to live on in the nightclubs, especially its B-side, 815 to Nowhere. Those were mainstays in alternative dance clubs during the 80s. Well, they re-released it a third time, and by the time this came out, I just had bought it. I had already bought the two 12-inches, didn't get this one. But it came with another mix, plus two new B-sides, Blue and The Spaceship Is Over There. Later, all of this was compiled for an album, which basically just collected all of their 12-inch singles. So it was nice to find this for a decent price. Vicious Pink, synth pop, if you like Soft Cell, they actually had sang backup vocals on Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret by Soft Cell. So definitely if you're into that early 80s synth pop from the UK, you'd like them. New Age Steppers. This is an album I was very surprised to find a good deal on. This is an Adrian Sherwood production from 1981 on the On You Sound label, his own On You Sound label. A good mix of post-punk dub featuring Ari Up and Viv Albertine from The Slits, as well as Mark Stewart from the pop group and also the Mafia. This is just a terrific album of experimental post-punk dub. New Age Steppers. If you see anything by them, pick it up. This is actually my first acquisition by this particular act. So definitely hope to find more. This one I had on CD, but it was nice to find it on vinyl. Good price. Pop Will Eat Itself, Cure for Sanity. I think this might be their third album. It contains the terrific singles. Dance of the Mad, XYZ was on here. Also, I'm trying to think of what else. Another Man's Rhubarb was on here. 92 degrees, Fahrenheit degrees. It's on here. Just a terrific album of kind of a mix of dance, indie guitars, a little bit of rap. I don't know how else to describe them. This came from 1990. Terrific album. Pop Will Eat Itself. Hard to describe. They really encompass a lot of genres there. This one I have not listened to yet. I've actually cleaned it, and it is waiting to be ripped to MP3. It's the Shaken Pyramids. This is a Scottish band from the early 1980s. The only album I know that they did. I have a double single by them, and it's on the Cuba Libre label, a really cool Scottish label from the early 80s. This is it was a subsidiary of Virgin. This one just came out on Virgin, and the album is called, what is it called? Celts and Cobras. And it's the Shaken Pyramids, kind of a rockabilly type group from Scotland. Yeah, I know, kind of weird. Scottish rockabilly. This one is a compilation that I remember back in the day and never bought it. So it was nice to find a copy for a decent price. It's called Let's Try Another Ideal Guest House. And I think it's a sequel to another compilation called An Ideal Guest House. Both of these are sort of charity compilations for the National Campaign for the Homeless. And they came out in 1987, at least this one did. And it contains a lot of cool C86 style UK indie bands of the time. The bands I know on here: A Witness, Television Personalities, Laugh, 14 Iced Bears, AC Temple, Tallulah Gosh, The Bats from Australia or New Zealand, The Bats, Thousand Violins, Stars of Heaven, The Flatmates, and Close Lobsters, to name a few. And then there's a few other groups I don't know on here. This is another one. I've cleaned it. It's waiting to be spun and ripped over to MP3 so I can listen to it in my car. So I'm sure it's going to be good, though. I'm already familiar with some of the songs and bands on here. So anyway, those are all the things I found in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Who would have thought I'd find all that cool stuff there? So if you are in the northeast or the northwest Arkansas area, head over to Fayetteville and check out Block Street Records. Again, competitively priced, but not overpriced. Just full of good records, well curated. I highly recommend the store. Here's a few other things I've picked up. These are going to be just random finds. So I'm going to race through those as quickly as I can. This one, Icicle Works, Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream. Didn't know that there was a US 12-inch with extended remixes of it. Found it for $1 and picked it up. I always liked Icicle Works. This one from Pete Shelley, a 12-inch ex-Buzzcock Pete Shelley. Although he's currently with the Buzzcocks, but for a while there in the mid-80s, Buzzcocks were inactive, and he went solo and did a lot of electropop dance records. And this was one of the Millions of People and No One Like You. I had the 7-inch of this, but it was nice to find the 12-inch with extended mixes. Great B-side. If you ask me, I won't say no. Pete Shelley. Peter Ivers found this really cheap and thought I'd pick it up. It's a collection of 3 of his albums that came out during the 1970s and the very early 80s. It's a very kind of off-kilter, cabaret-style experimental pop. I'm not quite sure how else to describe it. You'll need to YouTube him and make up your own mind of what you think of him. Very talented artist who unfortunately died in 1983. So he died young, and but he was known for me as hosting a show called New Wave Theater that was in the early 1980s and used to get shown on cable access, and it featured a lot of the LA punk bands like Dead Kennedys and the Germs and groups like that. So anyway, I was interested in what kind of a musical career he had, and very interesting. Some of it reminded me of I don't know how many of you know Van Dyke Parks, his album Song Cycle that came out in the late 60s. This reminded me a little bit of that. Quirky. I know that's an often used word, but it probably is the best description for this album. Peter Ivers. Excuse me while I take a drink. All right. This one, I've been picking up stuff by the Low Fidelity All-Stars, a band I got into in the late 1990s. Really dug them. Good dance music, known kind of alongside Chemical Brothers for the big beat sound. Just hard beats, very rhythmic. I've always really liked them. They had a minor hit over here in the US with a song called Battle Flag. This is their first one, cool rock bass. Just good, heavy, hard-hitting dance music. Not sure how else to describe them, but I've always been a fan of them. So this I found for $13 sealed. It's a brand new, well, not brand new, but it's a new 180-gram Rhino reissue of Black Sabbath's first album. I've been after this for a while, but wanted to find a good copy of it. And boy, for $13, I just couldn't resist, you know, a sealed copy of the first album. So Black Sabbath, again, a group that, you know, I don't have much by. So slowly but surely I want to get more stuff by them. Really warming up to them. So there you go. First Black Sabbath album. Gave it a spin last Friday night, and it's pretty freaking fantastic. This one by Robert Palmer. I have always loved the song Pride. This is the title track from his 1982 album. Very kind of a calypso tropical feel to it. This is an extended version on a 12-inch, and I never knew there was an extended version of it. So Robert Palmer, this is a lot kind of a lighter touch than things like Addicted to Love or Simply Irresistible, stuff he became known for more in the late 80s. This is a little more subdued, but catchy stuff all the same. Found this, got this one online, didn't know, I think it's a bootleg. Felt, a band I love. I have everything by Felt except just a couple of records. And didn't know that they had done so many BBC sessions. So this is a collection of their BBC sessions, and it of course echoes their the sleeve is a blue tinted version of their 1985 album Forever Breathes the Lonely Word, or 1986 might have come out. Looks a lot like that, but it's not. It's the BBC sessions of Felt. If you're not familiar with them, check them out. I would say check out Penelope Tree, Ballad of the Band, or Something Sends Me to Sleep. If you liked a little like television, Tom Verlaine, Bob Dylan, even sometimes like Rudy Collum in their more pastoral instrumental phase. And this album came out on blue vinyl. But it is, I think it's a bootleg. It doesn't look like it's an official release. So, fantastic fun Britpop band who did 3 singles, The Great Northern Electrics. This is one I'd had a 7-inch of, found a 12-inch of it. It's called Sunday's Child. Think Stone Roses, Primal Scream, I don't know, The Charlatans. If you're into that kind of thing, you'd like Great Northern Electrics. They had another great single called Rosemary. One I never had by the Pet Shop Boys, It's a Sin. This is the Ian Levine remix, along with a rough mix of the B-side, You Know Where You Went Wrong. I love Pet Shop Boys, and this is one 12-inch I never did get my hands on back when it came out. So it's a limited 12-inch to It's a Sin, 1987. Funk band from the UK, Eye Level. This is one called Teacher. Early 80s group. Think Level 42, Shack Attack, Imagination. If you're into like that funky, I don't know, funky dance sound, they're very much in that vein. If you want to get a sense of what they're all about, check out a track called Give Me or Minefield. Those are 2 other terrific singles by Eye Level. Another dance act from the early 1980s, Freeze. This is Pop Goes My Love, a big hit for them over in the UK. And just good freestyle electro from the early 1980s, produced by Arthur Baker. Huge. I referenced Level 42 earlier. I'm a huge fan of them, and I never did have this album. This was the final album they put out during the 1980s, Staring at the Sun. I never did buy it. I was kind of getting out of them around this time. They were getting a little bit too away from their jazz leanings and getting a little more rock. But this is actually a pretty solid album. I really, really like it. Found it real cheap, and I'm glad I did. Staring at the Sun, Level 42. Found this pretty cheap, sealed. It's a compilation by Leo Zero called Disconnect, and it's just a bunch of post-punk funk dance music kind of mixed together. The stuff I knew was Essential Logic, Basement 5, Chris and Cozy, and also Brian Eno with John Cale. But there's loads of other stuff on here I don't know. So yeah, this was a really nice find. A lot of good dance music there. Here's a band I saw open up for The Drums, a really cool jangly band that's around right now called The Drums. Fantastic group. They have a new album out, but I didn't pick that up. That'll be out, so I'll get that one soon enough. But the opening band was called Knee High. Good jangly melodic guitar pop band, Knee High. I don't know much else about them, but this is their first release. And I think it's just simply called Knee High. There you go. Found this cool album recently. Mick Ronson, guitarist for David Bowie during his Spiders from Mars era and the early 1970s. An album he did in 1975 called Play, Don't Worry. Fantastic record. If you like David Bowie, especially from the Diamond Dogs, Hunky Dory, Ziggy era, waste no time. Pick this up. It's very reminiscent of it, as you would imagine, but not a ripoff of it at all. So, excuse me, I have got a low power mode happening on my phone. So what I'm going to do is turn my Mophie on and get some power. There. Guess I should have thought of that before I started filming this, huh? All right, a few more things to show. Botany 5, a really nice down-tempo synth pop band from the early 1990s. This came out in 91 actually. This is the only album that they ever did. It's called Into the Night. They'd have two fantastic singles, one called Nature Boy and another called Love Bomb, both of which I have. And I had a ripped copy of this on CD, but never had the original, so always wanted to have this, and there it is. A lot of it's pretty mellow, good late night album. Kind of a chill out kind of thing, but great melodies, great vocals, very subdued. Can't say enough great things about it. Botany 5, Into the Night. Glad to have a copy of this. Some 12 inches. Alphaville, Sounds Like a Melody. Never did have a copy of this, so glad to finally own it. It's an extended version of the wonderful album cut from their 1984 album Forever Young, which of course is the song they're best known for here in the U.S. And it had an exclusive B-side on it as well that was really good. A couple of OMD 12 inches I never did have. I'm a huge OMD fan and have most of their stuff. Had both of these on 7 inch, but it was nice to get them on 12 inch. Never Turn Away, extended version, along with a live version of the Velvet Underground's Waiting for the Man. And then Talking Loud and Clear, a really nice track from their 1984 album Junk Culture, the same album that had this other 12 inch, Never Turn Away. This has an extended version of that, as well as a reworked version of Julia's song, one of the first songs they ever recorded back in 1979. This one I used to hear on the radio a lot when I was a kid in the late 1970s, and it was obviously a disco cash-in for the Superman movie that came out in 1978. Herbie Mann, jazz artist Herbie Mann, did a 12 inch called Superman. Found it for $1. And it's cheesy fun, but fun nonetheless. Martha and the Muffins, early 80s new wave group from Canada, released a string of awesome records. And then come 1984, they slimmed down to a duo. And it was just simply Martha Johnson, her, and her husband Mark Gain. It got down to just Martha and Mark, so they decided to call themselves M+M. They did a great record in 1984 called Mystery Walk, I think it was, and the single from it was Black Stations, White Stations. Great song. They followed it up in 1986 with this one, A Song in My Head. A catchy, catchy song. I always liked it, and found this for $1 and went ahead and picked it up. Yaz, not to be confused with Alison Moyet, Vince Clarke. This is a Yaz with 2 Z's. It's a woman named Yaz, and she had a big dance hit in the late 1980s, I believe 1988. The Only Way Is Up. And this is a further 12 inch by her called Treat Me Good. And then 3 from the 400 Blows. Actually 4 for the 400 Blows. One of these I picked up at Jerry's Records. It got into this pile here. Their album, If I Kissed Her, I'd Have to Kill Her First. A 12 inch called Movin'. I like that sleeve a lot. Here's another one with a cool sleeve. This one's called Declaration of Intent. And then another one called Runaway. Now, I got all these because their records were pretty hard to find in the 80s and 90s. You don't come across them much. So I came across these just recently and thought I'd go ahead and snag them. A lot like, if you like Cabaret Voltaire or Hula or 23 Skidoo, They're kind of like the more dance funk side of the industrial movement of the early 1980s over in the UK. UK band, and just the album is a lot more experimental. It gets into very left field, almost trying to think of a best way to describe it, like early Cabaret Voltaire. If you're into that, you'd like it. These later 12 inches get more in a funk dance direction. I love all of it, so I had no problem getting into that at all. This one I got online, Boots for Dancing, a Scottish band who only put out a few releases during their time. This collects a lot of songs that they never did release, as well as some John Peel sessions. And it's a double album, The Undisco Kids. Disco funk, post-punk is the best way to describe it. Scottish group. Joe Callis was a member of this group for a while. He had been in the Rosillos and then later in Dara era Human League. So good band there. This one I'd been looking for a while. I have one 12-inch to it, but this one had a longer version, and it was $1. Kid Creole and the Coconuts, My Male Curiosity. Fun song with that. The System, good electro R&B group from the early 1980s. A Spanish version of You Are In My System. A song that Robert Palmer, who I mentioned earlier, wound up covering a few years after this. Indians in Moscow. Great early 80s synth pop band from the UK. This is their one and only album, and it's just simply called Indians in Moscow. Female-fronted synth pop band, early 1980s. Fantastic stuff. I have their singles, so it's good to have the album. And then this one you might know, a big hit in the late 1980s in the clubs and on the Billboard Top 40. Con-Can, I Beg Your Pardon. Found this for $1, and I have fond memories of dancing to this in the clubs in the late 1980s. So there you go. Just a few 45s to swim through. I'm already at 21 minutes, so we'll go through these real fast. Girl, this is a from 1980, a UK band, kind of glam hard rock, featuring Phil Collin, who would leave this band and join Def Leppard for the Pyromania album. Someone also told me the LA Guns singer used to be in this group. Don't have that verified, though. That just came from a friend of mine. The Hollow Men, fantastic UK indie band from the late 1980s, early 1990s. This is a single called White Train that came from their second album, The Man Who Would Be King. And let's see what else we got here. A friend of mine sent me this cool Biz single, Scottish band from the mid-1990s, fantastic group. What else have I got here? I'm skipping some of these that just aren't really that interesting. Tin Huey, great band from Akron. And I don't know much about them. This is all I have, is this little 7-inch. And but they were apparently influential on a lot of the bands that would come out of the Akron scene, like Human Switchboard and Devo. So Tin Huey. Blue Zoo, fun UK pop band from the early 1980s. This is a single called I'm Your Man. UB40, an early one from them, So Here I Am. Love early UB40. Like all UB40, really. One from the Bell Stars. It's called Sweet Memory. Never did have a copy of this, so there you go. Love the Bell Stars. Town to Town from Microdisney, Scottish band, indie band from the mid-1980s who signed to Virgin, releasing the album. I forget what the album was called. Crooked Mile, I think. And the single was called Town to Town, and this has some Peel sessions as a bonus 45 with it. Paul Haig, ex of Joseph K. This is one of his first singles as a solo artist. It's called Never Give Up Party Party, good electro pop. Cook the Books, this is a Liverpool new wave group, an early single from them called Low Profile. Sugar Minute, this is called Good Thing Going, We've Got a Good Thing Going, nice UK reggae. Chris Rea, a double 45 he put out in 1986. This one's called Hello Friend. And it contains a live single that it came with it. Snatch, this is Paddy Paladin and Judy Nylon, stalwarts of the NYC post-punk scene. And this is a single they did under the name Snatch. It's called All I Want. Never had this, always wanted it. Scuba Scuba from the Revillos, great Scottish new wave, akin to B-52s. If you like early B-52s, you'll like these people. Blue Beat, I bought this because it was on the Absurd label, which houses a lot of obscure early 80s electronic music. This is more dub and reggae based. It's by Cairo. Cairo is the artist. The single is called Blue Beat. Nice cover there. The Police, a reissue of their debut single, Nothing Achieving and Fallout, featuring their original guitarist, Henry Badowski, who would leave after this and be replaced by Andy Summers. I love The Police, so it was good to have a copy of that. Voice of the Beehive, another late 80s indie band from the UK, fronted by two sisters from the US. And they've recently reformed to play a couple reunion shows over in the UK. Wish I could see them. But I did find this cover of the David Cassidy song, I Think I Love You. I bought it because it has an exclusive B-side called Something About God. Scars, UK Scottish band from the early 1980s, and a non-album single they released called They Came and Took Her. Good post-punk group. If you want to find out what they're all about, look up a song called All About You. Thompson Twins, before they slimmed down to a three-piece, they released this single called Runaway. Let's get a... There you go. Came with a free live 7-inch. Great catchy song, Runaway, from the Thompson Twins. That came off their second album called Set, which included their first sort of hit, In the Name of Love. Two more here. Ian McNabb, singer of Bicycle Works. This is a fantastic single he released in 1994, I think. No, 1992. It was called If Love Was Like Guitars. Never did have a single to this, but I do have the CD of which this album comes from. Terrific stuff. Catchy song. Look it up on YouTube. You will love it. Last but not least, I'm a huge Tony Mansfield fan. He is the leader of a group called New Music, but later went on to do lots of production work for Naked Eyes, B-52s, as I mentioned earlier, Vicious Pink, who I showed earlier. Trying to think of who else. Captain Sensible. He's just a fantastic producer. I love anything he touches. And this is one he did for a guy named John Dark. It's called Silhouette from 1983. Great piece of early 80s synth pop. Totally catchy. Had to order this from the UK. Anyway, more stuff to show, but I think that's just going to have to do for now. We're at 27 minutes. Whew. Hope that was... Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Anyway, I'll be doing another video pretty soon with some stuff I picked up over at Jerry's. But for now, keep that vinyl spinning and keep buying records and spinning vinyl. And thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you have any questions about anything I showed, feel free to leave a comment and I'll respond to you. Bye-bye.